Hello Bubblegummies and welcome to another Tips and Tricks. In the last few episodes we've been covering the 12 principles of animation. If you've missed any then just take time to click the card above and catch up on the previous episodes. Today's episode is all about staging. Staging is about drawing the audience's attention to where you want them to look on the screen. Unlike film and TV, theatre has only one viewing angle for the audience, and that is the stage. Cutting to a close-up to show the audience something important just isn't possible. Other techniques have to be used to draw the audience's attention to certain parts of the stage, so that they don't miss any of the vital bits of the action or the overall story. Thus why it's called staging. But this doesn't just have to be limited to theatre. Although in film and TV the director does have the luxury of cutting to whatever angle they like to keep the audience informed, this isn't always desirable as the audience can become quite confused and disorientated to what's happening and where people are in relation to each other as the action unfolds. Just watch any Michael Bay film to see what I mean. The director can also create some truly artistic looks using the palettes and techniques available when staging a shot. This not only draws the audience's eye, but it also really helps to set the mood and feeling of the place and the characters within it. So although this is part of the 12 principles of animation, it most definitely isn't just an animation technique. It's a story technique for all visual styles, from fine art to motion pictures. As you can imagine, it's a huge topic and there's many books covering all aspects of it. We're not going to be going into depth as we'd be here for a very long time. So instead, I'll be briefly going over the different tools that you can use to help draw your audience to where you want them to look. One of the most common rules of staging is the rule of thirds. If we take an image and then imagine 4 lines splitting across the screen so it's divided into thirds, creating 9 boxes. In theory, by placing your subject of interest on or near one of those intersecting lines, or even in the centre, while the rest of the image has all of the sort of less important information in it, the audience will tend to focus on that subject. So I have a theory behind all of this, and that is, as humans, when talking to someone, we scan their face constantly without even realising it, usually in a triangle pattern from left to right eye, and then down to the mouth and back again, so kind of like that. So it would make sense that we apply the same technique when we view most things. Of course, that is just my theory. But the rule of thirds does work, and if you want a little bit of homework, have a look at some of your favourite pictures and see what area the subject falls into. Using this rule also helps us to understand another rule of filmmaking, which is called crossing the line. Crossing the line refers to an imaginary line that the camera can't cross if it's to avoid confusion to who's where in a scene. Let's take 2 people talking to each other. I don't have any actors, so these 2 action figures will have to do. If I just filmed them from whatever angle I wanted, when viewed on screen this could become really confusing. For example, if I took this character and filmed him here, and then I filmed the other character from this angle, but then I decided to film the first character back from this angle, it would get really confusing to which side of the room they were on, and in some circumstances the first character would actually look like he was facing himself. This is where placing an imaginary line into the scene really helps. We can then add a rule that the camera can't cross that line. It has to film from one side or the other. I think an easier way to imagine this is there's a third person, which is the camera, watching the other 2 people talk, and they can't walk between them. By sticking to the line rule, we can keep one character's screen left and one character's screen right. The audience always knows where to look. Those 2 rules are probably the most fundamental rules in staging and help to focus the eye. But there are many more. We can use light and dark to help draw the eye to where we want. Vignetting is one of the most easiest and probably overused version of this. Or a spotlight on a stage being one of the most dramatic. But even subtle use can really help draw the eye, for example in this picture. But it doesn't just have to be black and white. Colour contrast can also be used. The most dramatic, and again probably the most overused, is the black and white image with just one part in colour. But by using a colour wheel as a guide, you can find complementary colours to really help draw the eye, like this. So in this example you can see I'm wearing a red top. Now if we just concentrate on the red top compared to the orange background, doesn't go too well because they're not complementary colours, whereas green compared to red is quite complementary. So now you can see that my top stands out quite a lot against the background. Shapes and lines in an image can lead the audience's eye to where you want them to look. A simple version of this would be railway tracks going into the distance. By having the tracks in the most prominent part of the image, the eye will lock onto them and then naturally follow to where they lead. But it could be anything from a row of trees to a flock of birds. Classic artists were masters of this and would use lines and gestures to move the eye across a whole painting to tell a story. Movement, or lack of it, is another good way to draw the audience to what you want them to look at. So for example, if we had 5 people and they're all moving at the same time, but you've got one person talking and the director wants the audience to look at just that one person, if they're all moving, it's going to be really hard for the audience to know who they should be looking at. But if we then make sure that everyone else is standing still and looking at the main person, then the audience will be naturally drawn to that person that's talking. This can also work in a vice versa manner. So if the main person or object is very still, but everything around them is moving, again the audience will be drawn to that still subject matter. Size can also play an important role in drawing the attention of the audience. It can also tell us a lot about the importance of a character or place. And again, by making the size of the object or the character the opposite to everything around them, we are automatically drawn to them. We can also use camera techniques, one of which is called depth of field. I won't go into technical details, but basically the size of the aperture on the camera, along with other factors like zoom, can determine how blurred or sharp the subject is to the background. By blowing out all of the unimportant parts of the image, the audience is then forced to look at the only remaining in focus subject. Hey.
Another technique is to use lots of space.
Or very little.
So there you go. As I said, it's a huge subject and I've really only just scraped the surface. If you'd like to learn more, I've added some links to some great resources down below. I hope you enjoyed this quick tips and tricks video, and remember, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tips and tricks. Until next time, bye for now.